Welcome to Execution File. Thank you for being here. Please support by subscribing so you never miss these real execution stories. By the late summer of 1997, a quiet fear began to move through several apartment complexes in Houston, Texas. It did not happen all at once. It crept in slowly, step by step, like a shadow that kept returning every night. At first, it looked like an ordinary crime, a robbery here, a car taken there, a stranger seen slipping through a parking lot in the dark. People locked their doors a little faster. They double-checked the chain before bed. They told each other, "Be careful," without really knowing why their voices sounded so tense. Behind many of these moments, though no one knew it yet, was one man, Franklin Dwayne Alix, born in August 1975 in Harris County, Texas. He was young, only in his early 20s, but in a few months he would leave a mark on Houston that no one could forget. Over about 6 months, investigators would later link him to a frightening trail of crimes: robberies, kidnappings, rapes, attempted murders, and several killings. These were not hidden in faraway places. They happened in and around ordinary apartments, the kind of homes where families cooked dinner, watched television, and believed they were safe. The pattern was simple and cruel. People were attacked where they lived: parking lots, stairwells, front doors. Those are the places where most people feel relaxed, where they stop paying close attention, where they think, "I am home now. Nothing bad can happen to me here." But bad things were happening. By the time police understood how wide the damage was, they were looking at a list that included at least 3 murders, 2 attempted murders, 9 robberies, 2 rapes, and 4 kidnappings, all tied to the same man. This was not a single explosion of violence. It was a chain. Each crime led to the next, each one testing how far he could go without being stopped. Every case file had numbers and legal terms. But behind each one was something much more painful. People who would never again feel safe walking from their car to their front door. The most shocking of all these crimes would center on one family, the Bridgefords, who live in a townhouse in southwest Houston. Their story began like any ordinary night and ended with one child dead, another destroyed by trauma, and a family that would carry the weight of that night forever. It was the night of January 2nd, 1998, when 19-year-old Carol Bridgeford pulled into the parking area outside her family's townhouse in southwest Houston. The evening itself was nothing special. No storms, no alarms, just another night where a tired young woman parked her car and got ready to go inside. That ordinary moment was exactly what made it so cruel. She was not doing anything risky. She was not out in some dangerous area. She was at home, but someone was watching. According to later court records and news reports, that someone was 22-year-old Franklin Dwayne Alix, moving quietly through the complex like he had done in other places before. For him, the apartment grounds were not home. They were hunting ground. As Carol stepped out her car, the world she knew collapsed in seconds. He abducted her at or near that car, taking control of her body, her movement, and her choices. In that instant, she went from a free young woman to a captive. He did not stop with kidnapping. Public account of the case explained that he sexually assaulted her. That detail is hard to read, but it matters because it shows how far he was willing to go to break another person completely. He did not just take property. He took safety, dignity, and peace of mind away that leave scars deeper than any bruise. But his cruelty was not finished. After assaulting her, he forced her to go back to her own home. Imagine the horror of walking into your living room, not with your head high and your keys in your hand, but as a prisoner being marched inside by the person who just attacked you. Inside that townhouse, it was no longer her home. It was his crime scene. Under his orders, Carol had to gather valuable items from her family's home: 2 televisions, a VCR, stereo equipment, things that had been bought with effort and used in quiet moments when the family relaxed together. Now, these objects were being treated like trophies in a robbery. Later, he would claim that she offered these items if he would not kill her, as if the desperate bargaining of a terrified victim was some kind of fair exchange. It is easy to see how cruel that claim is. When someone is begging for their life, they do not make deals. They cling to whatever hope they can find. While all this was happening inside, the outside world remained unaware. The building did not scream. The walls did not speak. The neighbors might have been watching their own televisions or sleeping in their beds, not knowing that one home in their complex had turned into a place of terror. At the same time, somewhere beyond those walls, Carol's brother, 23-year-old Eric Bridgeford, was moving through his own evening. He had no idea that his sister was under attack, and that his next steps would carry him into the middle of a deadly scene. When Eric came home that night, he walked toward the same townhouse where he had gone in and out countless times before. That front door marked family, warmth, and routine. He had no warning that his own home had become a trap. Inside, the robbery was still happening. The man responsible for the kidnapping and assault now had the house filled with stolen items ready to be taken away. When Eric arrived, he interrupted that crime. In another life, this meeting might have ended differently. The intruder could have run. He could have surrendered. He could have chosen not to kill. But that is not what happened. As soon as Eric appeared, the fragile balance inside the townhouse broke. According to the official version of events, Alix chased him. Eric tried to escape, running from a danger he had not created and did not deserve. He did what any frightened person would do. He ran. He did not get far enough. With a single shot fired into his back, Eric's life was taken. One bullet entered his body as he fled, and his attempt to reach safety ended outside the same home that had always been his refuge. There is something especially bitter in the detail that he was shot from behind. It strips away any illusion that this was a fair fight or a sudden accident. He was not a threat in that moment. He was a young man trying to get away. For his parents, the news that followed must have felt like a nightmare they could not wake up from. In one night, one child had been kidnapped, raped, and forced to help rob the family home, and another had been hunted down and killed. For Carol, the pain carried an extra layer. She had been used as a tool in a crime against her own family. No matter how many people told her that she was not to blame, that guilt and helplessness would stay heavy on her shoulders. The Bridgeford home, once a simple place on a map, now became a symbol of how quickly safety can collapse. The story reached beyond their street, across Houston, and into the wider world as reporters wrote about the case, and people tried to understand how such a chain of cruelty could happen in such an ordinary place. The crime that took Eric's life became the central piece of the case against Franklin Dwayne Alix. It was no longer just about robbery or assault. It had become capital murder, a killing during the course of another violent crime. Once investigators pulled the threads together, they saw that this was not an isolated event. The murder of Eric and the attack on Carol fit inside a long pattern of violence that had been spreading through Houston for months. Public records described Alix as a rapist, robber, kidnapper, spree killer, and serial killer. These words are heavy, but each one is attached to a real person on the other side. For every legal label, there is someone whose life was changed forever. Many of his crimes happened in apartment complexes. These were places filled with families, students, workers, children playing outside. Suddenly, the parking lot under a street lamp or the walk up to a front door became dangerous. For the murder of Eric and the connected crimes against Carol, the state of Texas put him on trial. The prosecution told a clear, harsh story: a kidnapping, a sexual assault, a forced robbery, and finally a cold shot in the back as a young man tried to escape. Alix admitted to the fatal shooting. He did not deny that he pulled the trigger that killed Eric, but he disputed some of the wider evidence, arguing that the state had gone too far in tying him to every step of the broader crime spree. The jury saw the heart of the case clearly. A young woman was taken, assaulted, and forced to strip her own home of valuables. Her brother walked into the middle of the robbery and was shot as he fled. Under Texas law, that combination, murder during a robbery and sexual assault, met the standard for capital murder. The verdict was guilty. The sentence was death. From that moment, he was no longer just a suspect moving through Houston at night. He became a death row prisoner, living in a tightly controlled world behind steel doors and concrete walls. His life measured not in days of freedom, but in appeals, hearings, and final dates. Outside the prison, people argued about the case. To many, it was simple. A man had terrorized families, killed a young man, and destroyed lives. The death penalty, to them, was justice. To others, even while agreeing that his crimes were terrible, The idea of the state taking a life in return raised deep moral questions. While these debates continued, time moved on in a straight, unforgiving line. Appeals were filed and denied. The crime stayed in the memory of Houston and in the hearts of the Bridgeford family. The legal machine kept turning. On March 30th, 2010, in Huntsville, Texas, the state carried out the sentence. At the age of 34, Franklin Dwayne Alix was executed by lethal injection for the murder of 23-year-old Eric Bridgeford. In the final hours before his execution, the man who once moved through dark parking lots and quiet stairwells now lay in a bright room, watched by prison staff, witnesses, and the eyes of the law. There were no shadows to hide in anymore. Every movement was controlled. Every second was counted. Reports from that day say that he spoke about his life and his choices in a way that some people found unsettling. He talked about making poor choices and claimed to be at peace. For strangers reading those words, they might sound calm. For the families whose lives he broke, they could feel almost empty, because what words can ever be enough when a brother has been shot in the back while trying to run to safety? What speech can erase the memory of a sister being forced, under threat, to carry televisions and a VCR out of her own living room, knowing that her family's home has been turned into a stage for cruelty? For the Bridgefords, the execution did not rebuild what they lost. It did not bring Eric back. It did not erase the images in Carol's mind. It was at most a line at the end of a long, painful chapter. The man who hurt them so deeply would never hurt anyone else again. For supporters of the death penalty, this case fits the argument that some acts are so extreme that the only answer the state can give is to take the offender's life. A 6-month spree of violence, multiple victims, the kidnapping and rape of a young woman, the cold shooting of her brother. It feels to them like a story that demands a harshest punishment. For opponents, even this case does not settle the debate. They see a prison system that already had the power to lock him away forever. They ask whether another death, even one carried out by law, truly honors the life that was lost. They worry about the message it sends about how society responds to violence. Somewhere between these two sides stand the rest of us, listening to the story and feeling pulled in both directions. On one side, there's the rage and sadness for Eric, for Carol, and for every victim of that 6-month crime spree. On the other, there's a heavy knowledge that one more life ended in a room designed for death. This case becomes more than a headline or a court file. It becomes a mirror. It forces us to look at what we believe about justice, punishment, mercy, and safety. It makes us imagine the moment when Eric stepped into his own home and never walked back out. It makes us picture Carol's fear, guilt, and strength as she survived something that could have broken her completely. And even after the needle is removed, the witnesses leave, and the prison door closes, the story does not really end. It lives on in every person who hears it, in every family that remembers a loved one taken too soon, and in every law book that records this execution as one more line in a long, troubled history. Thank you for watching Execution File. Please like, share, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe. Your support means so much and helps this channel grow. What do you think, justice served or not? What kind of execution story would you like to hear next? Another death row case, a serial killer, or an unsolved crime that still haunts people?